Well, Sony finally decided to grace us with their presence. After taking a little hiatus and not showing up at CES 2023, they've decided that, you know what? It's time to show us what they've been cooking. And today that's what we're going to be covering. So if you like content like this, subscribe and join the journey. Smack a like on this video. And with that, let's get started. So Sony has a couple of different models this year. They're starting off with the W830L. Then that's going to transition into the X75L. The X77L, the X80L, the X82L, and the X85L. Now these are Sony's entry-most televisions. They're the ones that are going to give you the most bang for the buck, but to be fair, they are a bit in the way of being clones of one another. What I mean by that is basically Sony goes the route of essentially bundling in the 4K HDR processor X1 from 2017 and basically all of these. And you can see pretty much their old technology from last year returning into pretty much all of these. The only notable additions is when you step up to, let's say, the X80L series, where you then get the benefit of their new game bar feature along with the screen size shrinking option. More on that later. But essentially, if you want bang for the buck, that's where they kind of end their offering for you. Now, of course, they spent the majority of their time talking about their creme de la creme models, which I'll go over now. These models include the X90L full array LED television, the X93L mini LED, the X95L mini LED, and then we transition to their QD OLED A95L. Obviously, that's their creme de la creme. Now, you can also step down to the A80L, and if I would imagine, maybe down the road, there'll probably be like an A90L, but again, they're not directly saying that at this point in time. Now, the sizes for these particular models vary, okay? So, with the X90L, it comes in 55, 65, 75, 85 and 98 inches. That will give you basically a full litany of options to choose from. If you then want to step up to the X93L, that comes in 65, 75, and 85 inch options, again continuing the theme. Unfortunately, the X95L only comes in an 85 inch this year. You do not have the 75 or the 65 inch option, so you will have to keep that in mind. Now, if you wanted the A80L, then that would be a 55, 65, 75, and 83 inch option. And at the top of the line, then you have the A95L, which comes in the 55 and 65 inch options that they had last year, with the brand new 77 inch options that so many people were excited about. Again, great news for everybody there. I want to take a little bit of time to just kind of address something that I don't see many people talk about. This TV is not out right now. We have to be very honest about that. We don't know its performance. We don't know how it's going to behave compared to last year or any other television on the market. I do find it strange, though, that there are a litany of AV YouTubers and reporters alike coming out and pretty much all but declaring this the winner and the champion just because it's Sony. I find that to be very disingenuous, but of course I know they do it because they're running publications, and hey, they need these things like yesterday, right? At the end of the day, it's all about shaking hands. They scratch Sony's back, and in return they get free units, which helps their channel stay alive. That's good for them. We stay alive with crowd and self-funding, and if you like that kind of thing, hit that join button down below and become a member, and help us continue to fight the good fight so you get brutal honesty instead of a commercial. One of the big gains this year is the clear image technology. Now, me being a professional photographer, along with a bunch of different other things, I've been exposed to this technology for a long time. I'm talking since like at least 2012, 2013. Clear image zoom was a technology that basically cleared up your digital zoom so that you would get that really nice, sharp, crisp, near optical level of performance without having to sacrifice that resolution that you would normally get in terms of when you use digital. It's really ingenious, actually. Well, they're bringing that technology for the first time ever to the TV world. Great job, Sony. However, I do want to talk about what it's supposed to do. They say that if you have a lower resolution source, for example, like a DVD, it's going to be able to recognize what it is and be able to apply the correct adjustments. Now, these are promises we've heard for years out of everything that Sony has talked about when they're talking about, hey, we pull from a dual database or whatever. It's just a new twist, in my opinion. Not fact, I'll test it, of course, but it's just a new twist on something that they've been saying for years. We take old stuff and make it look better. We upscale like crazy. That's basically what Sony is saying here. here. We will have to test that with over the air and other things, but at the end of the day, it's good to see that they're trying to do something different. Now, they're addressing more specifically the jagged edges and aliasing of all kinds, more or less, in your content, mosquito noises they call it, things like that. So hopefully that does improve, but again, it would have been nice to see a newer processor that would have kind of changed all that versus like something that probably could have been a patch for the other XR chips, because it's still an XR chip. I highly doubt they're doing anything so fundamentally different that the other XR chips can't do. So I feel like this should have been a patch at the very least for everybody else, but I'll digress from that point. Now, moving on from that to the next feature that they're offering, they're talking about a game bar really hard. That is like one of the big things they're proud of. Now, I'll just kind of give my 2 cents on this by saying I don't think that this is the time to celebrate a feature where you're catching up to everybody else. Let's be real. You have competition like Samsung, TCL, and the list goes on and on for people who've had this game bar feature before Sony. So I think if they're going to try to celebrate a moment, this probably shouldn't be it. It should be like, hey, we are finally catching up. But they're really playing on it like it's a big deal. It's really not, especially since everybody kind of, with the hype with these game bar features, it kind of died out. Like Samsung's been on this for like years now. Like it's not news. Guys, it's not news. Right? But more importantly though, they now have this feature that allows you to shrink the size of your 85-inch television. Because 85 inches is too big and you'll never be able to change the native resolution of what you're watching. That video I made a little while ago, they're now confirming that it's true.
What if you could shrink the TV down to a normal monitor size, let's say 27 inches? Well, that's exactly what you can do. You can now adjust the size of the screen to something that's more comfortable to game on. And when you're watching movies, you can just go back to the cinematic screen size you love so much.
I've already been saying this for years, but 85 inches is just way too big. They don't care, of course. We'll talk about that in a separate video. But the point is, now you get the benefit and the glory of taking all that money that you just put into an 85-inch and shrinking it down to something more comfortable. I thought smaller screens were the answer, but we'll talk about that again in a later video. Moving on from that point, though, it is positive to see that they're giving more features that are new, even if they are a bit kind of pointless when you could just buy a smaller screen. Again, we're going to talk about something I think is pretty cool, though, and that is the fact that Sony this year has a unique ability to rewrap old technologies and sell them as new. They're talking about light sensors, they're talking about acoustic surface technology as if it's all brand new and we've never seen it before. They're literally trying to repackage, literally split screen options, picture-in-picture options, as if we didn't have the ability to do that before on TVs like the Sony A8G Bravia OLED and A9G and things older. Like, I just don't understand that direction of like, we clearly have these TVs on the market, we've seen that technology before, and you're like, oh my God, guys, you can do picture-in-picture. You can watch YouTube videos and play your games at the same time. You can watch TV and play your games at the same time. We've already had that in years prior, and I own a TV, the A8G Bravia OLED, that allows me to do that. So that's something that I think is a little missed opportunity. But something that really excites me is their new depth algorithm, okay? They're talking about enhancing it more than what it was before, but I do stay reserved on this and I won't get my expectations too high because this is still the same XR chip. Again, this probably could have been a patch for the others unless there's something they're not relaying to us where they've gone in and they've made a new chip secretly. This is still the same XR cognitive processor, so I'm not really seeing how it's going to do more heavy lifting than all of the other cognitive processors on the market right now. Again, something I'll need to research for later in videos to come. Now, aside from that, they have what I personally think is a kind of pointless feature where they repackage all of your features like, your eco mode and your energy saving options into now like an eco dashboard, right? So that you can see what you're giving back to the environment. And here I thought recycling was the answer, but I guess I could be wrong on that. Either way, Sony is trying to stand firm in their commitment to improve the environment with TV features. Yeah, you heard it right, TV features. But now they say they're going to do less plastic this year. We're going to see if they hold true on that, but in the last years they've been making this Road to Zero claim, they've been really heavy on the plastic, so it'll be interesting to see the unboxing process again to come later in the year. My point with all of this is simply put, there's a lot happening with Sony, and there is some exciting bits and pieces. Like, I want to see if the depth algorithm that they're talking about this year can really improve things, but at the same time, I won't get my hopes up too high. Now, they've made a claim this year that they are unsurpassed, basically, talking about the A95L. And then they've got all of these AV YouTubers and reporters, again, like I was saying earlier, kind of say, hey, they're fantastic before even seeing it, testing it, and they're confirming as much on video. They're talking about, you know, basically you need to have an 85-inch screen size for the A95 or the X95L, when frankly we could have had a smaller screen size, and that the solution is to shrink down your screen. That doesn't really help a whole lot of people. But again, it's a disconnect, I feel, that Sony has had generally from what people are saying. You know, they're playing on brightness this year, and they're talking about with the A95L that it's going to be 200% brighter. But here's the problem I have with all of that. The panel still comes from Samsung, so if you could do the 200%, so can they. I just don't see a world where Sony is able to do so much more than what Samsung is pulling out on their panel in terms of brightness, using literally the same exact technology. But again, I'll digress from that point. What I will ultimately say is this: there is some room for Sony to surprise us, but it's always one of those things that, because Sony is so tight-lipped about this stuff, and because they have so many people that come out and support them and kind of, if we will, bootlick for every little thing they create, it's hard to see what they do and innovate with, and if there's any problems where there can be a conversation even for improvement. So I will really have to get these televisions in and review them and analyze them to see if they've made any tangible adjustments for you, the viewer. If you really want to see that and you want somebody that's going to honestly just cut the crap and be honest with you, definitely watch my videos. It's gonna be something. I'm telling you right now, we're not gonna hold anything back for the sake of getting a unit later on in the year. Okay, that being said though, I really want to hear what you guys thought about this, because I personally thought the press conference delivery very boring, right? It wasn't the best. They could have done better. It was an area of opportunity for sure to maybe look at how other people are presenting their material at CES and do better, and they had all the spotlight on them, and they did this. So I'm not impressed by it, but at least we now know what to expect. Pricing, of course, is up in the air, but come on, we all know Sony's going to be expensive, especially that 85-inch X95L. Forget about it. I mean, can we just take a moment to appreciate that at this time in the world right now, everything is very expensive. If you can somehow have the privilege of having the space in your home for an 85-inch television, being able to afford Sony prices on top of that just adds to another barrier. Doing that in the middle of what we can call a secret recession, I think that's just something. I really do. Sony's marketing is kind of premium without offering something new. The, again, A95L is looking exactly like the A90J from 2 years ago, and all of their designs look to be copy and paste from last year. That isn't innovation in my book. That screams laziness, and it's a window into what I believe I can expect when I analyze these TVs later on in the year. Again, won't be biased or hard on them. I'm just calling it as I see it, and I will see if they've made an improvement, and if they do, fantastic. We'll celebrate and talk about it together. But again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and thank you so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty. Until the next video, I'll see you guys later.